Good morning. How's everyone doing? Besides the smoke, of course. Everyone glad it's Friday, though? All right. So my name is Brad, as Ms. McCarthy said, and as you can see, I'm Henry Hauser's dad. What I wanted to talk to you today about was really how you use your motivation and use it to achieve your goals and turn it into success. So, as we heard Dr. Erickson, he laid out this matrix with the quadrants, and he talked about in each area, when you have high passion, low passion, confidence being high or low, what each one of those is and what actions you have to take. And then Manette came out and gave an outstanding presentation on when you have high self-confidence and self-esteem, the amazing things you can achieve. Like her starting or founding an organization like Object just a few years after she actually graduated from PBS. So those are two amazing talks. What I wanted to do today was talk about when you have your high passion and your high confidence, what do you do next? How do you achieve your goals? And I think it really comes down to three simple things, which you can see over here. First, you have to believe you can do it. Next, you have to learn how to set goals. There's actually a plan and a process that you have to put into place. And then last, you have to realize that nothing comes easy. Everything takes hard work and dedication, and that failure is actually a normal part of the process. So what I'm going to do is talk about one of my passions, which was running. I no longer am a runner, but I spent most of my youth and college career and post-college competing in athletics. And I'm going to use these three examples of how in my running career I used them to achieve success. So first, believe. Does anybody know who this gentleman is? I wish. Yes. Outstanding, excellent. His name is Roger Bannister, and he achieved something at his time that everybody in the world thought was impossible. Since 1886, when the first people really started running and racing, they thought they were trying to break the 4-minute mile for 4 laps around a track. And it wasn't until almost 60 years later, on May 6, 1954, that Roger Bannister was the first to achieve that feat. And everybody, all of the coaches and all of the experts at the time had these training plans, and all of the athletes were struggling to break 4 minutes. And Roger Bannister did it a different way. Everyone said he was an outcast, but all of his people that were close to him said that he would visualize the race, every step of the race that it would take to break that 4-minute barrier. And what's even more amazing than what he did on that day is how long his world record lasted. Can anyone guess? For 50 seconds. You got the right thought. It was just over 1 month. So what people were trying to do for 60 years after it became possible. So what Roger Bannister did is he made the impossible possible. People started believing they could do it. And 46 days later, another person broke the world record again. And within the next 3 years, 10 more people broke the 4-minute barrier. So all that changed was that they believed they could do it. So you always have to believe that you can achieve your goals and objectives. Next is setting goals. So it's a process. You have to do it in steps. Is there anyone here that wants to become a doctor when they grow up? Great. Can you guys practice medicine tomorrow? No. You have to do well here at PBS. You have to do well in middle school, high school. You have to take tests to get into college. You have to take the MCAT to get into medical school. Then you have to go into pass your boards, residency, fellowship, and in 16 to 20 years, when I'm an old man and I need to come see you, that's when I'll come see you. But you have to set goals along that entire path in order to achieve the ability to become a physician. And most important is you have to write down your goals. You're 80% more likely to achieve a goal if you write it down. And why is that? Because remember, at night we dream, and a lot of us daydream. Our brain doesn't know that it's real until we actually take another step and write it down. And I was actually lucky. I learned this at a fairly young age. Why is there a picture of a locker? So when I was just starting out in running competitively, I was a freshman in high school, and I was also playing soccer. So I did really well my freshman year. And then when I got into my sophomore year, I started getting more serious about running, and I studied all of the magazines because we didn't have the internet back then. So I studied track and field news to see what the fastest time in Texas, I grew up in Texas, so what the fastest time was in the state over the last 4 years. And 9:02, which I put on a sticky note on my locker, was the fastest time that I could find in any of those magazines. And that was my goal. And sure enough, by the end of my sophomore year, I ran 9:01.76, and I had a huge personal best. But you know what? It wasn't the fastest time in Texas. I got second in that race by less than half a second. So what you write down, make sure you're specific on what you want to achieve. And then last, as I said, everything takes hard work and dedication. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. So you've got to stick with it. And there will be times where you don't meet your objectives and you don't meet your goals that you write down. And you have to learn how to deal with failure. And it's really how you respond to that failure and what you put into place to resolve that that will ultimately determine the level of success. So the last story I wanted to share was a story of my journey to make the Olympics. So in the 2000 Olympic Games, I was able to run the 5,000 meters for the United States, which I'm very, very proud of. So I wanted to start with a clip of the race that I actually qualified for the Olympics in, and then I'll tell you a little bit more afterwards about the story.
He is indeed, as Nick Rogers now has built a big lead. Brad Hauser is now his closest pursuer, with Adam Goucher shortly behind in third. And Mark Davis has fallen back to fourth. Matt Lane is fifth, and Bob Kennedy struggling in sixth place. They have one lap to go. There's Kennedy struggling down the home stretch, but he's not going to make it. It doesn't appear at this time. Nick Rogers leads into the final lap. Adam Goucher has taken over in second place. Brad Hauser is third. Matt Lane is fourth. They're down the back stretch. And the battle is between Goucher and Hauser, second and third, because Nick Davis has a big lead.
Now Goucher seems a little uneven in his form. He needs to look around and decide whether he wants to win the race and risk aggravating his injury or just be calm and make the team. But Goucher's MO is, I gotta win every time I go to run off.
Goucher goes to the lead. Rogers is fading badly as Hauser passes him as well. Rogers is back into third, but he'll still make the team if he can hold on. Adam Goucher, Achilles injury and all, leads Brad Hauser through the straightaway. Nick Rogers holding in third. It's going to be Adam Goucher to win it. Hauser is going to finish second, and the final Olympic spot goes to Nick Rogers in third.
So that was probably the best race of my life. And you notice I didn't win, and I won many races throughout my career. And I'll tell you why in a little bit, why that became my best race of my career. But I'm going to walk through how I approached and how I became that I actually believed that I would make the Olympic team. So the day was my birthday in 1999, so just over a year and a half before that race. And I ran 10,000 meters. So that race was the 5,000 meters. Does anyone know how long the 5,000 meters is? That's 1,500 meters, which is just about a mile. So 5,000 meters ends up being about 3 miles. So in 1999, on my birthday, I ran a time that was necessary to qualify for the Olympics in the 10,000 meters, which is 6 miles. And that's the day that I started to believe that I was going to make the Olympic team in 2000. And from that point on, once again, setting goals, once I started writing that on my locker, I would write it in my logbook, all of my goals for every race, almost every practice. And you can see that I always had the Olympic rings as my goals for making the team. But what was reason that became my best race was what I had to go through to actually achieve to make the team in the 5,000. Because a week before that, I was running the 10,000. And the season coming up to it was my best season ever. So in 1999, I ran the 10,000 World Championships in Seville. I was a top American finisher in the race. And then in college, I was still in college, so at Stanford, I won the Pac-10 championships. I won the 5,000 and 10,000 at the NCAAs, and the season and training was going as good as it could possibly go. So I get on the line a week before the race you just watched for the 10,000 meters, very, very confident, highest confidence level of my career. And sure enough, with 3 laps to go, I was right in the top 4 people, and the person that actually ended up winning the race broke away, and I just didn't have it that day. And I ended up watching my dreams of making the team vanish as I got 5th place in that race. So I had to come back in a very short period of time where run the 5,000 meters. I didn't have the qualifying time to go to the Olympic Games. I actually had to do it in the race that you saw. And when I woke up that morning of that race, my whole back was locked up. I had all these doctors, team doctors, looking at me, trying to help me. And I had needles, acupuncture needles, in my hand and my head while I'm eating lunch. But when I got to the line, I followed the same path I did for every race, where you visualize and you believe in what your objectives are. And sure enough, as soon as the gun went off, I ended up not only finishing second, I didn't win, but finished second to qualify for the team. I ran the Olympic qualifying time, and that was the fastest race in the 5,000 meters I ever ran. That is true. I did not get a silver medal. But I did get to represent our country in the Olympics, which I'm very proud of. So with that, I just want to remind you that when you want to achieve your goals, you can achieve great things. Anything you set your mind to, as long as you believe, you set goals, you take a plan, and then you realize hard work and dedication is necessary to succeed. So with that, I wanted to thank you and have a great Friday. I can take a couple questions. Go ahead. What inspired me? Well, anything where you find passion in things you love. And for me, running and sports was a passion growing up. It may be music for you, could be math, science. You find your own passion. Find what inspires you. And then when you have confidence, you put those together to achieve your goals. Go ahead. My favorite part about running is winning. Yes. Yeah, you.
Who did you look up to? Was it that guy?
Roger Bannister? Roger Bannister was not one of my idols. Steve Prefontaine, who was a runner in the early 70s, was somebody that I really looked up to. And he was very similar to Roger Bannister in that he believed that he changed the sport. He believed that he could do anything. One last question.
Why did you decide to run?
Why did I decide to run? You do the things you love to do, and when you find that you're better at some things than others, that builds on your passion because you're successful and you set new goals and you continue to move up. It just happened to be the thing that I was best at. All right, so thank you, everyone. Have a great Friday.